Hello and welcome. Hello and welcome to AM Language. This is the afternoon Q&A session, question and answer session, and I am going to answer any questions that you guys might have regarding English. I'm just going to share the video with online so more people can join in. We've got 2 people already. Good afternoon. I hope you're all well. Let me know who you are. I'll shout out your name, and please, in this session, this is your opportunity to ask any questions you might have on the subject of English, be it grammar, learning words, pronunciation, you name it. I am ready to answer. Now, this morning's session was a very good session. Ended up asking a range of questions. The first question of the morning was to do with the difference between the present continuous and using will to create a future simple tense. On top of that, we also looked at some modal verbs, some prepositions, and I think there was a few other things as well. We also looked at online dictionaries, online English dictionaries that you guys can use as well. Now, this is for all levels. So, and because it is for all levels, it doesn't matter what your question is, you can ask. Now, what I would say is, if you want me to talk slower, I can do. If it doesn't matter what English question you have, I am ready to answer it. To answer 1 or 2 questions that sometimes I do get while we wait for more people to come online. One of the questions I was asked, when was it? I was asked this the other day. It was a grammar question. Now, the question was... One second. Just trying to find what the question was. Okay, so there was one question to do with had and have and used to. So that was one question. And the other question, how to use the future continuous, and yes, that was it. It was the future continuous and used to with have or had. So let's start off with the used to question. When we're using used to, and we are talking about in the past, we've got I used to and then something. When we use used to in the past, we then have to go with the verb in its present simple form, or the infinitive form. So, for instance, I used to enjoy running. Or no, I used to enjoy playing football, for example, because it's in the past. And because it's in the past, when we have the first verb, which is already in the past, which is used to, the verb that comes after used to is going to be in is going to be in its present form. In this case, it's in infinitive form. Now, the other thing as well that is important to remember is that used to is used in different ways. So, for instance, in the present, you can say I'm used to let's see, in the present. Well, this is going to be I'm used to speaking Spanish. I'm used to speaking Spanish. for example. In this case, we can simply drop the D. I am getting used to working with them. Okay, so here you've got this. You can see that the verb in the present form is now going to be is with an ing, and with use, uh, um, we can in the first one we can drop the D. I'm getting used to actually, and the second one, I am getting used to working with them. So used to can be used in different ways, but the important thing to remember is that when we do use it in the past, you've got the used with the D, so used to plus the infinitive verb, and that's all you need to remember. Now, when it comes to the future continuous, it's important to remember the be. So I will be watching Netflix later, for example. So when you say I'm watching Netflix later, I will be watching Netflix later. That there is the future continuous, and you're using will plus be. Um, and we must remember the be. We must remember the be. It's important. Uh, it's important to remember that. Um, some interesting things here. Right, so let's look at something else. Going back to it, I just want to go through. What did I write over here? Okay. I am used to. So we've looked at I'm used to. What about? We looked at the future continuous. So there's a few things here. Like I said, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. And in the meantime, I am just going to have a little look to see if there's anything else that I can look at. That's a point. I just want to make sure. Did I get the spelling right of something? No, I forgot something I'm used to. I am used to drinking tea. I forgot the D. Sorry, on used to. I just realized my spelling mistake. I am used to drinking tea. That's important to remember. When you say I am used to something, meaning I know how to do it, we must remember the D. I just realized that when I was typing, I forgot the D. And yes, it's the same with the other one. I am getting used to it. Okay, so don't forget the D because I forgot it. So future, you might ask actually the question, what is the difference between a present continuous and a future continuous? And those would be good questions. Now, the present continuous, don't forget, it's something that is relevant to the present and it's going to continue into the future. The future continuous is talking about something that's going to start in the future and will continue. And it's going to continue for a certain amount of time. So, for example, you're planning to go on holiday. You haven't booked your ticket yet, but you can tell people, I will be traveling to South America. I'll be going to Colombia. I'll be going to the Galapagos, Ecuador, Argentina, Peru. You haven't bought the ticket, but that's your intention. You are 90 to 95% certain that that's what's going to happen. But once you've bought the ticket, actually, and you know it's going to happen, that's when you change to the present continuous. I am going to South America and I'm going to go to the Galapagos, Ecuador, Chile, Argentina, Peru. So that's one of the things we need to remember. Now, you might ask the question, can we use another modal verb? Do we have to use will? The answer is no. You do not need to use will. What you can do, on the other hand, is you can I've forgotten my thought now. What was my trail of thought? Yes, you can use other modal verbs, but the meaning changes. So you can say, for instance, I might be going to South America. I should be going to South America. I could be going to South America. But the change of modal verb is going to change the meaning, but the grammatical structure is still the same. That will not change, and it doesn't change either. So that is one thing that you can remember. Now, what's the difference, though, between saying I should be going in March, I will be going in March, I am going in March, I could be going in March? Well, let's look at the differences because it's worth looking at. If you say I am going in March, this is now talking about something that is 100%. I will be going in March. Well, this is anywhere from 90 to 100%. I should be going in March. Now, if you say I should be going in March, we're now probably looking at something that's about 70%. You think it's going to happen, but it might not happen. I could be going in March. Well, if you're going with could, then it's talking about a possibility. You're then looking at something like, we'll call it roughly in the region of 50%. I might be going in March. Right. Again, that's probably 40% as well, likelihood. So as you go down the different types of modal verbs, the more likely or more unlikely something's going to happen. And that's something that we need to remember. Sorry, that is something that we need to remember. But you can see that the grammatical structure never changes. And this is the other thing, the future continuous. People need to remember the future is not a tense in English. It's called future modality. We are taking modal verbs to talk about the future, but there is no such thing as an actual future tense in English. But there is a grammar that we use to talk about the future. So that is where we are with that. Like I said, guys, if you guys have any questions at all, please don't forget to ask. I am more than happy to answer any of the questions that you might have. In terms of what's the best way to, some of you might ask the question, well, what's the best way to learn a language? How do I go about this? What do I need to do? When learning a language and you come across something new, like a new bit of grammar, new word, you've got to be able to use it, not just understand it. So if you come across a new word, you need to learn how to use the word in, first of all, in one context, in one grammatical form, with linking to certain words, and then you have to expand. So let's say you learn the word leap, okay, which is another word for jump, for example. Well, when you're talking about leap, okay, which is to jump in the present simple, you could say I leap across the the bridge. But then you then have to try and create it into different sentences. I am leaping I leaped. It's an irregular verb. I had leaped across the river before the police arrived, for example. So there's a past perfect sentence. If I leapt off a bridge, I'd land in the sea, for example. So when you learn a new word, yes, you need to learn the pronunciation. Yes, you need to learn about the words that you can use straight after. What preposition can you use? In this case, in this case, you've got leaped across, leapt across, leapt off. You've got two different type of prepositions that you can use there. And then you need to experiment. You need to try using the word in different grammatical sentences. Now, where do you go? You should definitely go to the Oxford Dictionary online, Macmillan, Cambridge. These are really good websites because when you learn a new word and you just translate it from English into Spanish using your Spanish translator, you don't learn how to use the word in English. And that is so important. It's really good to remember, very useful to remember that there is a difference between understanding something and being able to use it, knowing how to use it. It's a common thing that happens when teaching. We have a student who comes along and says, "But I understand this," but at the same time they can't. But even though they understand it, they don't know how to use the language. And knowing how to use the language is so important. How do you learn how to use the language? How you can show that you know the language? Speak into your phone every day, record yourself, listen back, listen to see if you're making sense, if you're using the word correctly, or if you think there's a mistake. And it's the same by writing. Write and write and write. Don't forget, please leave your comments in the section. I didn't receive any notifications over the weekend about anyone leaving comments, but leaving comments is really, really going to be helpful. Okay, and that's one part of grammar that we have now looked at. Like I said, guys, if there's anything specific that you would like to look at, I'm more than happy to. If you'd like me to help you with the pronunciation over certain words or certain things, I'm more than happy to take you through it. I think when it comes, by the way, here's a really good trick if you want to know how to speak English with an English accent. So the way you do this is you don't want to move your lips very much. Really, don't move them very much. And smile. What you want to do is you want to move your mouth as little as possible. So if you come from a Latin country, you are used to going back to what I had said at the start of the lesson. You are used to, I am used to, you are used to. You are used to opening your mouth a lot. In English, we don't need to open our mouth very much at all. We can simply smile and we can let out certain sounds. Now, a really good sound to practice trying to speak English with a little bit more of an English accent, if you want to, is to go oh, oh. So think of the sound oh and think of it like phone or bone or no. So you've got this oh, oh, oh sound. And then what you want to do is smile and really stretch it out a lot. So you can go, oh no, my phone, my phone. This is how you can try and use your voice to try and sound a little bit more English speaking When you come across difficult sounds in English, now one sound that's really difficult, for instance, is want and won't. Because a lot of people struggle and end up making won't sound like want. Want. The first things first, want, okay? This one here. The sound is ah. No, sorry, the sound is oh, want, oh, 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 want, want, want. Okay, so that's the sound you want. Oh, okay. Want, want. Notice my mouth is closed. Oh, want. It's not wide open, it's narrow. Now, then the other one, okay, you have this O sound, like phone. Got just like O, like phone. Okay, so like phone, phone. You've got this O, O, O. Oh no, my phone. I won't want another one. So you don't need to open your mouth very much, and that can help you get round the sound. Now, another sound that can be quite difficult is the th sound. Th, th. Now you've got the soft th, and you've got the hard th. Now the soft th is the like this, that, mother, brother, the. In other languages, sometimes they in like German, for example, you might hear the person stop saying the and saying z. They replace the th for a z sound because it's easier. It's not correct, it's just easier. But then you have a hard sound, which is th, 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 th. Now, if you have a piece of paper, you can do this yourself. You take the sound th, okay? So you have a voiced and unvoiced sound of this. This here is th, 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 th. Okay, and this is going to be the voiced sound of it. This is because we should feel the air coming out of our mouths, and it should move the piece of paper. Th, th. So thunder, 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 thunder. Think, think. Think, think, think. Okay. Think, think, think. It's a strong, explosive sound. It's th, and the sound comes out. It's hard. Boom. It's powerful. In that sense, it's a th sound. Now, between the and th, I got something wrong just now. The one I'm talking about is the unvoiced. The, as in mother, brother, and the is the hard sound. But this sound of think and thunder, although it's unvoiced, it's explosive air coming out of your mouth, and it moves the paper. So that's why you have think, thunder, thought, 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 thought of, thought of, thought of, thought of, thought of, thought of. So the next thing is the T. You've got thought, and then you've got the preposition of. I thought of, or I thought about, I thought about, I thought about. If you're going to try and say the T, thought, 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 thought about, thought about, thought about, thought about. Now, on its own, you can do it. Thought, thought, thought. But what we do in native English is actually we drop the T for what we call a glottal sound. It's very common in Scotland. So thought becomes thought, thought about, thought about, thought about, thought of, thought about, thought about, So we tend to drop the T's at the end of the words for this glottal. It's a bit like that, or shirt, shirt, shirt. It is something to be expected in English. Doesn't mean you need to do it. You need to be able to hear it, though. So these are some of the things that can happen in English as well. Now, you might ask a question, Richard, what can I do about accents? How can I learn about accents? How can I begin to understand different accents? Ooh, wait a minute, LVS.com. Hello, LVS.com. Thank you very much for joining again. Hi, Richard. What is the correct pronunciation? The words think and thought. Okay, the first thing is th. You've got the same sound like I was just showing you, think and thought. Okay, so it's just th, 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 think, thought, think, thought. The next thing to do is to think about the vowel sound. So in think, it's an I sound, like it, think, think, think. And the next is k, think, 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 think. Now, to get a more English pronunciation, really stretch the word out. Don't just say think, say think. Think, and record yourself. Does it sound the same? Does it sound the same? Think, think. Now with thought, the vowel sound, the stress sound is of or, just like horse, or, horse, board, or, roar, draw, or. It's a really weird one. You have to make your face look like a horse, and your mouth, your chin goes down. Your chin goes down. Thought, thought, thought. So that is to answer your question there. I hope that answers your question. But you might want to ask, well, what about the pronunciation with other words? Okay, let's look at that. I thought that you were going to be late. And I think that she'll be late. Now, what happens here? It's a really good rule. If you have a word like this, you've got one word ending in T plus another word that starts with T, okay, you're going to only say one T. So you drop the T in thought and you move straight on to that. I thought that. Because if you say I thought that, it's a long way to say the word. What we do is we combine the two and you say thought that. So this is what the word would look like if we spelt it in the way we say it. I thought that. I thought that. I thought that. Thought that. Thought that. Actually, the GH sound, is a for or. Actually, you find it with the modal verb or. This is just an or sound. Or. I thought. I ought to. So that is something we need to remember. The other one is, let's go with the preposition of. So I thought of driving. Okay, now here I thought of driving. Sorry, I thought of driving, not thought of drive. Remove. Okay, so I thought of driving. I thought of driving. Now, if you say it slowly, I thought of driving. I thought of driving. All very well and good. But native speakers, we would drop the T. So we would drop the T and go straight for of. I thought of, I thought of, I thought of, or if you want to be even faster, I thought of. I thought of driving. I thought of driving. I thought of driving. I am saying I thought of driving. I thought of driving. But if we say it quickly, it's then I thought of driving. I thought of driving. I thought of driving. I thought of driving. If you look at my mouth, I thought of driving. I don't move my mouth very much. It's a really and it's a common thing in English. We don't move our mouths very much. Okay, well, if you have an accent like mine, you certainly don't move your mouth very much. Um, what about other accents? Well, going back to the question, actually, I was going to answer, how do you learn to understand other languages? This comes to what you can do in your spare time. Listen to music and watch TV series of from different parts of the world. Like you will, if you listen to Australian TV series and then you listen to British television TV series, you will hear a really big difference. So, for example, take The Crown. Okay, that's an English TV series. Now, if we take a TV series like, let me see, if we go, I'm going with one American and I'm going to go with one Australian. I'm trying to think of a. There we go. Let's go with. Yeah, okay, let's go with this. Okay. If we go with Neighbours, which is an Australian TV series, it's where Kylie Minogue, I think, came from, and Danny Minogue. Okay, Aussie TV. It's got a really catchy tune at the beginning. Neighbours should be there for one another. It's a program I remember growing up watching, to be honest. Neighbours is one of these TV series that in 100 years' time, they will still be making. There's always time for Neighbours. And then if you take an American program, let's say, well, actually, which American program is a good example of American accents? That is a question. Oh, okay. The obvious ones could be Friends, Big Bang Theory. Um, Desperate Housewives, actually. Desperate Housewives has a lot of range, has a great range of different accents. That's why. Um, I'm trying to think of a series that I actually quite like, though. I mean, I'm not keen on Desperate Housewives, not my cup of tea. I am currently watching Person of Interest. Person of Interest is good. I really like that. 24 is another. Um, that's it. House of Cards. There we go. House of Cards. Okay. Now this is with Kevin Spacey, and Kevin Spacey puts on a certain type of American accent, but if you listen to enough, you will begin to hear the difference in the voices. If you want to hear what an Irish accent sounds like, then I recommend a sitcom, a comedy called Father Ted, which was really good. Um, you might ask, well, what about Scottish? Well, for Scottish, um, okay, Sean Connery is not the best example when it comes to Scottish accents. Sean Connery is his own accent in his own right. Um, A good example of Scottish accents, if you want to learn about Scottish, if you want to get used to hearing Scottish, I would say Outlander. Okay, there's a series called Outlander. Uh, you should be able to find it on Netflix, and that's really good if you want to learn about and get used to listening to. If you want to get used to listening to Scottish accents. Now, other accents that are worth learning about or examples. So, for instance, if people in Denmark, Danish people, they have very, very good English speaking accents, almost to the point where if you hear someone from Denmark, even natives might sometimes think that they are from a region in the UK. This is because their accents are very closely related to some accents that you find along the east coast of the UK. So if you so I would say that Danish actors, for instance, actually, if any of you watch Lord of the Rings in English, the actor who plays Aragorn is actually Danish. Never knew that until yesterday, but he's Danish. Um, Scandinavian countries, Sweden, Norway. They speak, the way they use English is a little bit different. Like you can always tell, you can always see this when this comes to like a choice of language when telling stories or jokes. That's when you can see how the language is slightly different. But in terms of pronunciation, those are fairly good neutral accents as well. And finally, you've also got the Dutch accent as well. The Dutch accent is has a slight American twang to when we say twang, like sound, has a slight American sound to it. It's not American, but there's a slight American sound to it um, at times, along with something a little bit more nasally as well. And finally, if you were to, let's say you want to know what a New Zealand accent sounds like, then for me, I would say, and I recommend this anyway, because not only are the songs funny, but the television program is also funny. And this is this is a New Zealand band and TV program called The Flight of the Concords. I recommend Flight of the Concords as well. Um, South African, to be honest with you, I don't know very much when it comes to South African series or examples because my exposure to South African accents is usually through either documentary channels to do with animals and like the Lion Man. Actually, I think he's called the Lion Man in South Africa. This is about a guy who has a safari sanctuary um, for lions, and the lions recognize him, see him as a part of their pack. He is South African, and he does have a South African accent. Actually, when it comes to African accents, I will say this. If any of you have seen Blood Diamond, okay, Blood Diamond, you will see Leonardo DiCaprio play a Zimbabwean, and his accent for Zimbabwean is actually pretty good. He does a pretty good Zimbabwean accent, and the Zimbabwean accent is very, very similar, is pretty similar to the South African accent as well. So that would be my advice if you want to get used to listening to different accents. And it is important to get used to hearing what people sound like from different parts of the world speaking English. Um, Actually, another nation that is good to get used to hearing is are Germans. So if you watch any German TV programs, Netflix series, that can also be good because again, what type of we have to think of how English is spoken as a second language, because the majority of people speaking English speak English as a second language. So unless if you are in an English native speaking country, anyone else is going to be speaking it as a second language. And that's where you can listen to see how the influence of the first language, of their native language, comes out in some sort of way um, it, when it's being spoken as a second language. Um, it is certainly useful to get used to uh, hearing people speak English from different parts of the world who might not even be native English speakers. A really interesting actor that I recommend listening to in the way he speaks English actually is an actor called Christopher Waltz. Christopher Waltz. I'll see if I can put his name here. Christopher. Christopher Waltz. Now, Christopher Waltz is Austrian, if I'm not mistaken, but he is, yeah, sorry, Christoph Waltz. Sorry. Now, he acted in Django Unchained as one of the main characters with a beard. He acted in another Tarantino film called Inglorious Bastards, where he acted as one of the main bad guys in the film. Again, he spoke. He's what is really good about Christoph Waltz, is his what we would call enunciation, how clearly he speaks. So, for someone who speaks English as a second language, he is a good example to listen to. And I would encourage you guys to look at people maybe with a similar who come from the same place as you and see how they are speaking English, because that can be a really good example of how you can develop your English and being clear. Eva Petrova. I had a native Scottish colleague that couldn't understand her the first 2 years. I can't imagine her working as an English teacher. Um, I had a native Scottish colleague that couldn't and oh right, and you couldn't understand her for the first 2 years, and therefore you can't imagine her speaking English. Well, from an English teacher side of things, thank you very much, Eva. From an English speaking side of things, as a teacher, you need to train yourself in class, not necessarily outside the classroom, but in class, to develop a more neutral English accent or a more neutral way of speaking. So if you have a hard Scottish accent, you need to soften your accent when you are teaching English. And this is the same for this is a problem generally with people with strong accents. If someone has a strong accent, if they are a teacher and they are in class, this is when they need to try and soften their accent a little bit. It can be difficult if you have a really strong accent. I would say the hardest accent I for people probably to understand. Yes, people like Scottish people, they can have strong accents, but I don't think it's the hardest one. Northern Irish is difficult to understand. Now, Northern Irish, it's a very it's like the sound is in the back somewhere. It doesn't come out, and it's not very articulate. Another accent that can be really difficult to understand, but because of how fast they speak, would be something like I remember meeting a guy who was New York Jewish in Australia, and I had a hard time understanding him because he spoke so quickly. So it does depend how fast the person speaks, what the influence of the accent is. Some people have a very nasal accent as well. So it depends on lots of things. But this now brings us to the end of the 45 minutes. Thank you very much, guys. Tomorrow is a public holiday, and so things will come Wednesday. There will be more stuff to do with what's happening with online side of things. I hope to get out some more information for the rest of the week. It might be uploaded tomorrow about what's happening with more YouTube videos as well. Thank you very much. All the best. And stay safe. Subscribe to the channel. Share the video. And I will see you next time. Please continue to look at the social media pages, especially tomorrow or Wednesday morning, when we will post more information about the up and coming timetables regarding to do with anything to do with your anything to do with lessons, and specifically in this case YouTube. Special shout out to Eva, thank you very much for commenting, and once again a special shout out to LVS.com. Thank you very much for participating in both this morning's and afternoon's lesson. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye for now.